Now, what am I doing here? Okay. When I get switched over here.
I think we're there, Mark.
I think we're still.
We're in the new interface. No?
Okay. I see 34 participants
Right.
sitting here. Just want to make sure that we're not. Okay. I think we're good. So you guys got the latest list I sent you, Ferdinand? Okay.
Yep.
And there's there were a couple signups after that, so I'll send you end of today a final list.
Good. Sounds good.
That should work good.
Okay.
See, so I don't know that I have to admit anybody, or they just are here. Let me see.
Like there's folks I'm seeing here for attendees. I'm seeing 40 people, so I would imagine they're all here.
Good. Yep. Yeah, I'm at 41 attendees. Good. Well, hello. I guess it's 10:01. Time to get started. So thank you everyone for joining us again on this webinar. This is I haven't done a lot of webinars in the last several months. Hopefully to get back doing more of these. I really enjoy them, and hopefully they provide value to you as the attendee. As you have questions or comments, please just put them in the chat box, and we'll monitor that and try to answer your questions as we go. And at the end, we'll have a question and answer session. This is not going to be one where I've got a whole bunch of charts and graphs and PowerPoints and so forth. I'm going to just talk to you from my perspective of what I see going on, which just is like painfully obvious to me that I don't know that a chart or graphs can help make it any more obvious. And so basically, I feel like we have, we're just going to make an assumption here that you're selling commercial building materials, and so that architectural specifications are an important part of your ability to grow. And they're just baked into the system. The more I've looked into what prompted this webinar was several weeks ago. I went to the AIA show in San Francisco, and I wrote an article review of it that got stirred a lot of things up. Got a lot of really interesting comments and feedback, positive and negative, but also ones where I learned and made me look deeper and so forth. And it just showed me there's really something going on here. And what I really think is that we have kind of a breakdown in the system between the architect and the manufacturer. The architect designs the building is made of materials, products and materials and systems, and people that make those want to make the architect aware of their product and system. And the way that we're currently going about that seems to be, to me, disconnected. And I think a couple things have changed. One is I think the architect has changed. The business of architecture is changing, and also how buildings are built, designed, and built is changing, and the demands on the architect are changing tremendously. And so, one of the biggest things that and a lot of people came back because I really challenged, for example, why would a building material company exhibit at the AIA show? Okay, I understand. I'm not a big fan of trade shows overall, because you spend a huge amount of money for 2 to 3 days of possible contact with people, and you may pick up a sale or a piece of business here, yes, but I question with that amount of resources or budget and so forth spent against it for 2 or 3 days, how much can you get? So a company maybe comes away with 100 leads. In my past experience in following up with them, they'll be excited after the show that like, oh, we had a lot of traffic, a lot of interest in our booth, and we got 100 leads. Okay, 3 months later, how many of those 100 leads have turned into a sale or a spec change? Something else has happened. Well, we did a couple lunch and learns, and we sent some catalogs out and so forth. And then 6 months later, and a similar result. And 9 months later, well, Mark, we really can't track any specific sale to that activity. And so, it's I just think like we're trying to cast too wide of a net. Like a company the other day I talked to, I think 2 weeks ago, was mentioning, look, well, Mark, there's 140,000 architects, and if only 1% of them would buy our product, that would be really big for us. And I'm like, okay, there may be 140,000 architects, but only probably 1% of them care about your product. So you're not starting with 140,000, you're starting with 14,000. But they continue, and I see many companies just continue to think that it's almost like they see every architect as the same. You're an architect, you're designing buildings, you're writing specifications, so therefore I need to talk to you. And then I shift over a little bit and I look at what I'm going to call today the sad state of architecture, in which we have firms certainly that are recognized, we'll say rock star architects like Frank Gehry and so forth, or other architects. That's a type of architect, okay? And certainly they're important, and if your product fits with them, that's fantastic. But when we look at the vast majority of architectural firms today, they are under extreme pressure from very money-conscious owner-developer clients who will tend to, unfortunately, maybe undervalue the architect and what the architect does and can do. And so they're just looking like, I need an architect, so I get a set of plans and that are illegal and we can build from. So I need an architect for that. I don't need an architect to create a better building. I already know how good a building I need, and I've built 10 of these or whatever I've done. And so that architect, they to me architects are, I don't know how to describe them. They're just amazing people. But what they aren't necessarily is great sales or marketing people. So they may have gotten themselves into this, okay, I've got a 30-person firm here. I got to keep the lights on. So I need to keep doing business. And this is our segment that we're known in. And here are our current clients, and here's some other clients, right? But they all keep these same demands on us. Nobody's coming saying, I want to reinvent how the convenience store experience, right? That's not happening, right? They're saying, I need another Marriott hotel in this, this block in Kansas City or whatever. And you've done this before for us, and do it again. And not looking for a masterpiece, a showpiece, something that's going to change the world. And so they're kind of stuck in this place where the easiest thing for them to do is to cut and paste specs from what they've done previously. So until that firm, either the owner says, hey, this hotel's by an airport, so it's going to need a lot more sound control, or gee, we're concerned about crime, or whatever it is, that they go, oh, okay, or a code changes. So I need to figure out how to reconfigure walls or something because of a new code, okay? if that doesn't happen, then what they've been doing in the past, they'll just keep doing, even though you have a better solution. So I guess I kind of look and say there's a group of architects that you should be pursuing, you should be aware of, have identified and be pursuing, who are the best architects for your type of product, whatever, or your product story, or whatever you deliver, that you should already be, and you're probably already selling them, and hopefully keeping them and expanding your uses with them. But it seems like outside of that, we just look like, well, there's a whole bunch more architects. And it's almost like we don't really have I don't know if it's a numbers game. If we get in front of enough architects, something will fall in our lap. Now, I have worked with some companies that, each sale is worth so much that they can do that. Okay. Each sale is $500,000 at least, or whatever, at a 30% margin or something. But most companies are not in that position. Okay. But yet it's like we kind of like take this approach of a hope and a prayer that if I can just get in front of enough architects, that someone will somehow they will be interested in us. And so to me, it seems like that doesn't seem like a very efficient way of doing things today, particularly today's world, if we have so many ways we can measure everything. But yet, one of the interesting responses I got from my article about the AIA show was a number of people at companies, particularly in marketing, saying, I agree with you, Mark, but how can I convince my head of sales that this is a waste of money, right? That there are more effective ways to do this, right? And I think, first of all, let me say also, the AIA show is a fantastic organization. The AIA show is a great show for architects, okay? It's not a great show for building material companies. And, and this has not changed. This has been forever that I've been going to for over 30 years trade shows. If I go to the builder show, the show floor is packed with builders wanting to talk to manufacturers. If I go to the roofer show, the show floor is full of roofers wanting to talk to manufacturers. If I go to the architect show, it is never full of architects wanting to talk to manufacturers. It is a much less, the show floor is a much less important feature of the AIA show than it is of other shows. So I think we make the mistake of, if I sell roofing, I should talk to contractors at their show and architects at their show, but realizing there's a very big difference, right? And I'm not saying if the AI show is working for you, keep doing it, right? Or if you got something that's working for you, certainly keep doing it. I just see more and more people continue to waste money. And so then, we go on from there. And so we have these directories, to me, of like suites and ARCAT, master spec, so forth. And so we feel like, well, we have to be in that directory. Okay. And so many companies just almost blindly go, of course, we're going to be at the AIA show. I would say if you didn't go to the AIA show, absolutely nothing would happen. You would not lose any sales. All right. Yes, you might, there might be a lead that you don't get, but how much did that lead cost you? Okay. Probably a minimum of $50,000, if you go, have an exhibit and so forth. But, and is that wow, that's a lot of money for a lead. And then I look at the directories, and the same thing. They all. Let me say that they all. I'm not trying to badmouth any of them. They all have their place. They all form their function. I just think it's like we have this mindset about, well, we need to grow our sales, and so we need more architectural specs. So let's just keep adding more ways to do it, as opposed to saying, what are the top 3 ways we can do it? What's the best way? Heck, I don't, and maybe suites can do it for you. Okay, but I think we just blindly every year just continue paying to be there, and then not really demanding or analyzing the results that we're getting. And we maybe take anecdotal information about, oh, well, there was this big project in Columbus, Ohio, and it came from here. Okay, that's like somebody like me on Facebook, to me. Can you replicate that again? Can you have that continue to happen? Then I look at like lunch and learns. There's another thing where, okay, the AIA requires that to be an architect, you have to get a certain number of CEU hours per year. Okay, fine. That's their problem. Why did the manufacturer all of a sudden assume it's the manufacturer's problem, right? So the manufacturer now spends money to develop AIA qualified CEU lunch and learn courses, and either they pay an outside for a service to put these on, or they put them on. But in any case, and there's from most of them, I see there's not a lot of money spent on putting these together, so they're not particularly good or interesting. But then the thing I really look at is, once again, these salespeople's time is now taken away to do this lunch and learn. All right. And it's like we're crossing our fingers that we can, that the right person will show up at one of our lunch and learns who's actually interested in our product. Okay. And we don't question and really, I don't see companies at least like evaluating, okay, we did all these lunch and learns. How many people actually requested any more information after that? How many turned to a spec, and how many of those specs turned into a sale? And maybe you're doing a great job and there's a case, but I don't think we're measuring it enough. So I think that we're pouring a bunch of money, and the biggest part of the money, once again, to me, is our salespeople's time. I know salespeople that literally are just doing anything they can to get more lunch and learns. It's like that's their little thing they have to check off in Salesforce each week of how many lunch and learns I did this week. Okay, doesn't matter who the firm was, doesn't matter what happened. It's just they click them off. It's almost like the only way an architect will talk to me is through a lunch and learn. Okay, I don't believe that's correct, but that's what a lot of individuals and companies believe. So we got this lunch and learn, and some of the most, that also to me says something about some of the most effective reps that I know are very respectful of their own time. They understand the value of their time. They understand, like, hey, I have knowledge to share with you, Mr. Architect. I'm not just here to sell you something. I'm an expert in this, and I have knowledge to share with you, right? If you sincerely would like me to do a lunch and learn, I'll be happy to. Here, I'd like to know who's going to be in the meeting. I'd like to know what projects they're working on, right? It's not just okay, I don't care. Yeah, anybody, I can do a lunch and learn for anybody anytime, right? And so it's easy to see how the architect starts to maybe not regard the sales rep as anything more than a sales rep. Where the best ones, I think the architects go, wow, now this person knows their stuff. If I've got a question about this subject, I'm going to reach out to this person, right? And so it's just a different attitude here. But once again, it's that thing about just chasing things and this kind of a hope and a prayer. If I can get in front of enough people, I'll do things, right? Now, we also should be doing with things like SEO and good content. We should also be reaching architects, and that's a great way to do it. And I think the industry is getting much better at this and understanding how it works. Because when I've been since the AIA show, I've interviewed a number of architects. I've just said, okay, when you're it was surprising me. I don't know if I can somehow do a survey or something, but it was amazing how many architects said, "Oh, Mark, okay, yes, we do multifamily housing, 4-story, whatever. There's a box, we do it. This is our area of specialization, right?" And I might say, okay, well, when was the last time you reviewed your specification for this product? And they go, oh, I can't remember. Okay. So, and that's probably your product, right? Is there's, they just can't remember the last time they even spent any time even looking at it, because whatever solution they have is working good enough. And nope, it's not a problem, not a complaint. And so that was interesting. And I said to them, okay, so if you were looking for something, what would you do? And they said, well, number one is I would ask a coworker or a more senior person or whatever, because I've been speaking to younger architects, and just, so one, I'd speak to another person in our firm. Hey, have you used anything other than this product or a different product here, or you have experience with this type of area? And they'll answer me. And so that's one way they get it. And then the second way, because they know there's been some experience, good or bad. And then the others, they just go online. And when they go online, the last place they go is the manufacturer's website, they tell me. Okay, they're looking for good pieces of content that kind of, first of all, help them understand what should I be looking for, and then maybe start to direct them, right? And then when they do get to the manufacturer's website, it's a very frustrating experience for them because it's not designed for the needs of the architect at different stages. And so the architect, they're not seeing this need, so they can get frustrated. But the last thing they said they want to do is talk to a rep. Okay. I mean, now, sure, there are maybe some reps who are very well regarded and known within every architectural firm by different architects. But if it's a new area, if I've never had to worry about a particular product or application, right? Maybe I don't know anybody, maybe nobody in the firm knows anybody. Right? But the last thing you want to do is talk to a rep, right? But yet the building material companies are set up to talk to a rep, talk to a rep, talk to a rep, get in front of you. And so if we can, get that, step back from that. So it kind of, came across to me that we should be doing a combination of, I'm going to call it inbound and outbound, okay? So one is you should know the leading architectural firms, the leading architectural firms who could use your product. Okay. So we have a great product for stadiums. Okay. And there's probably not more than 50 architectural firms that you need to worry about. Okay. So you should, one, know those firms, be focused on doing outbound efforts to those firms, right? And if it maybe a lunch and learn there, it would be a great thing. It might take you a year to make it happen. Might take you a lot of work, right? But that's one, right? a lot of these firms are also you're probably already doing business with them, right? And so it's looking at who are their competitors. It's looking at also making sure that, you're giving them everything they need to continue to want to just stay with you, right? Now, when I want more, I want new, rather than just, this winging a prayer and, casting a wide net out and seeing what shows up, throwing all this money at it, why not recognize how the architect is actually looking? Okay. Now, yes, you can do some things to, they may not be aware that you exist, so they don't know to look for you. Okay. And so, yes, you can be using content and SEO and call stat. You can be using many different vehicles to do that. I don't know that an AI exhibit is how I would do it. I know it's how I would not do it, but you should already have this list. Then we look and say, okay, there's the rest of these firms. There's a whole bunch more opportunity out there, right? And right now, to me, most building material companies are ineffectively flailing away at trying to reach these people. And most of the time they're reaching people that aren't interested. And so that's an expensive, expense. And then they're reaching a possible prospect at the wrong time. And so that this group of architects, it's almost like I might say, what can I do to make it easier for them to find me and to want to know more about me, right? And so that was what was interesting to me about, I'm going to introduce in a second Verdon and Jordan from Ace Lab, but one of the things that was interesting to me is I've had, there's a lot of really innovative companies today in doing things in our industry, from finance to procurement to many different things that are pretty amazing. And many of them come at it from the technology standpoint, but they don't have a knowledge of how the business actually works. So most of them I look and I go, okay, I think you might have an idea here, but you obviously really don't know how the building material industry works, right? You're probably very good at writing computer programs and making this work and this connect to that connect and so forth. But you're not likely to succeed if you don't have a basic knowledge of the industry. And so I last year met Verdon, and in Boulder, he came to one of my workshops, and I was intrigued by his approach. Okay, which literally I think that it's going to sound a little harsh here or something, but I feel like many of these legacy directories and systems that we use were developed, before the internet, and they had businesses, so they kind of figured out how to stay in business. And I remember starting out when I started my career, before before the internet, and going to architectural offices for my clients and seeing all these green binders. And then I remember with some of my clients seeing them every year. Oh yeah, we have to do the suites catalog insert. Is it going to be 16 pages or 8 or 12 or 20 this year? And this and that, and it's like, and it was like, I'm sitting there going, really? This is what? Okay. Now, I mean, and I'm being, it's Suites is a successful company. I'm sure it does a lot of great stuff for a lot of great people. I just have this inherent question: is that everything, I see things that are legacy things that have been around, so we just kind of take what we had online as opposed to step back and rethink what are the needs of the architect and how do we make things more efficient or cost effective for the manufacturer. And I'm not seeing that. And so I've been intrigued when I talked to Verdun at Ace Lab that, he's an architect. So he started from there. So I want to, so one, everybody that's tuned in here, my main thing is like, I think that the approach most of the industry's taking is, I don't know what to say, old fashioned, ineffective. We're afraid to, it's almost like, oh, there's another company that has a way to get ARC specs, then let's sign up for that. Or another way, let's sign up for that. We keep adding things on as opposed to say, wait a minute, maybe we need to rethink this whole thing. It's almost like, I think back years ago when you wanted to sell something, you bought a one ad in your local paper. Then along comes Craigslist. There's no more one ads. There's no more local papers, unfortunately. But just big changes. And I feel like our industry has been looking for a big change and it hasn't come along. And just that, I felt like I'm not an architect. I'm not an expert in how they view things. I certainly try to stay close to them, listen to them, and I like the approach that Verdun had. So Verdun, I want to turn it over to you to talk more about what the heck got you into this.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. And I think all of those are fantastic insights. So, just by way of introduction, I'm a second generation architect, grew up in a small town in India. My dad's an architect, uncle is an engineer, eventually fell in love with design and the industries, so decided to become an architect as well. Came to New York for architecture school, and then, had to pull a lot of all-nighters as you do in design school, which helped me land a job at a top 10 architecture firm in the city. There, I designed projects for the State Department, which were US embassies around the world, and institutional buildings for MIT and Yale. At that time, as a junior architect, I had to do most of the specifications and research work for the projects. I would imagine, I'd specified across all the project $250 million plus worth of stuff into these buildings. But I just felt incredibly frustrated with how outdated the workflow was. Like, I entered practice in 2017. And so for me, there was an expectation of innovation and how we use the technology and tools to streamline our work and to be able to do more with our time. But that wasn't really the case. So then I started my grad school at the architecture school at Harvard about 3 years back, and I met a team of architects who unfortunately had went through the same exact experience in practice. And we all felt like, there was something that needed to be done about this very important domain of architecture, which, really revolves around the architects and the manufacturers, and then how we work together. And we felt like there was a disconnect there. So the first thing, we did in this exercise was we interviewed over 650 architects across the country from small and large firms. And then in addition to that, to get a holistic sense of where the problem exists, we also interviewed over 100 sales and marketing executives from building product manufacturers. So Mark asked me to share those insights first. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to share my screen in a second. From there, we show you a little bit of the technology we've built. And then after that, I'll hand it over to Jordan from our team. He recently joined the team. His background is in high-tech software, across several industries. And he'll share more about how we're solving the problem and essentially starting to play the matchmaker for the right architects and the right manufacturers. All right. Let me share my screen. And then the first thing I'm going to start with is how architects actually specify right now in 2023. This is what we found, regardless of if you are specifying the big ticket items in a building, like the cladding and the windows, or even things like insulation and the stuff you don't see in the building. At the end of the day, architecture is a business. Average architect has to work on 3 to 4 projects at a time. And there's, of course, a lot of deadlines. And so while we know most of the time that as we're repeating a spec, it might not be the best or the optimal solution for the project, it's easy. And so we do it. This is something that's happening again in the small architecture practices or even in the larger firms. And this, at the end of the day, for manufacturers, this represents the largest barrier for specification growth, which is that architects will go with what they know or what's in the firm standards unless they have a specific problem. Now, here's 4 of the problems which architects experience most of the time. One would be the need for a new firm standard. It might be that they're, unsatisfied with what they've used in the past, or there's just like an overhaul happening at the architecture firm to update all the things that they use, in the future. Or it could be they need a specific solution on a project, which may be related to code. It might be related to the client's requirements, the contractor's requirements, and so on. And what they've used in the past, it doesn't fit that well. Third, this happens more often than you would imagine, but your sales reps may have spent years, to build a relationship with the architecture firm. It can get lost in a matter of days or weeks if the architect feels like the rep is not responsive or they're not reliable in terms of the support. And lastly, substitutions. I know that's something manufacturers don't like to think of as an opportunity, but it really is, because a lot of times as architects are entering the CD phase or the bidding phase, they find out about new requirements, which again, it may be from the stakeholders on the project, and need to optimize for factors like the price, availability, sustainability, aesthetics, and so on. So in order to grow specifications, so a lot of you might already know these things, what needs to be done. One, of course, is you need to increase the product exposure and you need to build the brand awareness with the right architects for you, for the applications of the stuff that you make. So that when there's a need or when they ask somebody at the firm for a recommendation, you are, in their mindshare. Second one is, of course, to engage with architects, super early in design. So as early as SD or DD phase of a project, where you really have an opportunity to build the trust you need with these architects. And your reps or your team of experts would do that by adding value, which can be by, reviewing the spec, helping to draw the detail, having insights or some recommendations for the renderings and so on, so that you are embedded into the drawings and the specs and the renderings from the get-go. And that is really like an effective strategy to hold on to that spec. Third is, of course, to get access to actively specifying architects so that as they have a need to optimize or to substitute, you have that opportunity to be able to to enter the project and that firm. And then lastly, and the holy grail is really to become the go-to firm standard, so that as an architect reviews your information, the products, as they wrap their head around it the first time, then you also get embedded into the future work from that firm. Now, like all of these things sound pretty obvious. I think the challenge here is they only work, or you can only really accomplish any of these 4 ideas to grow your specifications if you actually have the intel and the insight from which architects are actively specifying, which architects are doing a project that's in SD or DD that's the right fit for you. Which are the architects that may be looking for a new firm standard where you have an opportunity to get that repeat business? like as Mark alluded to earlier, I think like a lot of the outdated methods that manufacturers, we found have used in the past, and where they feel like it's lacking to enable their growth. First thing we heard over and over again in these interviews was that with trade shows or magazine ads, the channels that have historically worked really well and still, in my opinion, have a great deal of social value to them. Meaning, you go to these shows and sometimes you run into architects that you've known for like decades or some other type of stakeholders. But at the end of the day, we heard over and over again that there's no way to identify, even from the architects that you meet, which are the ones that are actively specifying, which are the ones that actually have projects which are the right fit for you at that time. And then at the end of the day, as Mark alluded to, they fail to return that ROI to manufacturers or lead to resultant sales. With lunch and learns, a big frustration we heard from manufacturers has been that it's incredibly difficult to know what projects the firm has active internally, or if the primary influencers on those projects, like the principals or the PMs or the partners, if they'll actually be there during the lunch and learn, or will you end up just buying free sandwiches for the junior designers and all these folks in the firm that actually don't really have that influence at the end of the day. With this, the specification platforms like MasterSpec, SpecLink, and ARCAT, we've heard that they work really well for the architecture firms that are already, specifying you, and you tend to get specified by the same architects over and over again. But to develop new relationships, to end up in new firm masters, it's not as effective. And then the last thing we heard for the lead gen platforms like Dodge or CMD is that often these leads are so late in the project that manufacturers, they tend to get forced only being able to compete based on the price, not from, the value differentiators, which is, of course, a stronger place. And, it's not a race to the bottom. And, with these, I'll also mention just like a problem or two that we've heard from the architect side of things about why these channels aren't as effective for them when they have a need for specific manufacturers, or they need to find a new solution for the projects. With trade shows or lunch and learns, we heard that, well, all the information that I learn and all the education is really valuable for me. But when the time comes to actually specify something, I don't always have that like in my mind. If I had a lunch and learn a year ago, I may not actually remember all of that and like really think of that manufacturer right in the moment when I need information or I have a requirement on the project. With SpecLink, MasterSpec, we've heard that these platforms, they tend to list only the manufacturers that pay them. And so for architects, a big frustration is that they feel like they're not really able to have a good sense of all the available options in the market, all the other specs from the other manufacturers that aren't subscribed to these the specification softwares. So now with that, I'm gonna go over to the technology that we built, and then after that, we'll hear more from Jordan about like where we are in our development.
Welcome to ACE Lab, the only fully integrated platform where you can discover any building product sold in the US. We don't just show you a handful of brands, we show you all of them. This is Product Advisor. It's the brain of the platform. Let's say you need to find perforated wall panels. Select the right category and start entering your requirements. Nice. We just found 18 products. Let's narrow down our selection even more. You can add up to 4 products and click Compare. Here, you can see a comparison of the product's description, dimensions, finishes, performance, certifications, and even downloads. But what if you have a project-specific question? Simply click Request Information, select the project you're working on, and let the product rep know what you're looking for. Great, we just started a conversation with a product rep. All of your projects will be automatically saved for you. You can use projects to shortlist products, save your searches, and keep track of your conversations with product reps. Now, what if you want to share this info with your colleagues? Go to your project info and add collaborators. They now have full access to everything in your project. AceLab is the easiest way to organize your research. It doesn't matter whether you're working on a single-family home or a skyscraper. Discover new products, connect with reps, and collaborate with colleagues. AceLab redefines the product research process because now you are in control.
Awesome. Now I'll let Jordan introduce himself, and then we'll see a little bit more of the platform.
Great.
Jordan, over to you.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. And yeah, as Vardhan mentioned, my name is Jordan. I've been with AceLab about 5 months now. And really my job is to get architects connected with manufacturers. I'm having conversations all day with manufacturers like yourselves to listen to their issues on how they're able to get in front of the architect at the right time. So, you know, what we're going to do here is, pardon me if you want to hit the next slide. So really wanted to talk to you about how AceLab is the platform you need to grow your business. You know, we have carefully developed the solution to your lead generation issues that you face every day. First off, our user base is now well over 7,000. We're actually nearing 8,000 right now. And we're growing at about a 30% month over month with active projects. We're seeing hundreds of projects being uploaded daily. And often architects don't know what to ask or where to find the right products. Our intelligent product advisor acts as kind of a visual guide, leading the architect through a series of critical questions that help capture what is unique about your products so that you are selected for the correct project application. And then our webinar program has been tremendously successful. We handle all the promotions once per quarter to drive architects needing information about you for their active projects. Our events highlight your key products and differentiators. And typically we've been seeing between 200 and 300 attendees showing up. And really we're able to guarantee about 50 to 100 leads that will provide a significant boost to your pipeline within 6 weeks of becoming a partner. And as a salesperson myself, I know that I love when any opportunity to get real qualified leads with actionable intel on them as well. So our partners have been extremely happy with that program. And then our product selection service that we launched as well brings our AceLab product experts to the architect's project team to take responsibility for the specification of a major project. We'll recommend products, drive the specification decisions, and build their firm standards with our partner products to meet their requirements. We'll make sure to put you in a position to build a long-term partnership with architecture firms so that you'll drive real business growth over and over and over again. And then lastly, our platform enables a direct connection to your reps with all the information they need about the team and the project to become a valued advisor at the right moment in time. This lead comes from a platform search that found your products based on actual requirements, which ensures that we are pushing qualified leads to you weekly and allowing you to use your value add as the differentiator rather than just getting into a price battle at the end of the process. And then right here is just some cool numbers from us where we're able to show that we're now over 80,000 architects in our platform. As I mentioned, over 7,000 firms. We've actually had a few sign up this week that we probably need to update our slides. You know, we can't update them fast enough. And then we even have, as I mentioned, hundreds of searches and hundreds of projects being added weekly. And we're working with really some of the largest firms in the country. And the ROI that some of the manufacturing sales partners we've seen has been through the roof. As you can see from these quotes down on the bottom, they're able to see a quick ROI and a new efficiency in their sales cycle, where the team is now focused on fielding quality questions opposed to going out into the marketplace and trying to do cold calls or show up and do education sessions they're now able to actually have qualified conversations and move the sales process along a little bit quicker. And then really finally wanted to throw out the open invitation for anyone here to see our product in a little bit more detail. I'll actually be able to probably show you some active projects, as we have access to all of our architects, their platforms, and I can show you projects that are happening in your region or in your vertical that you may be able to be in on. So you can easily reach me through email. My cell phone is there. And I think there's actually a meeting invite in the chat as well. Or you can just stare at my my headshot. But either way, I look forward to hearing from you because we can help you, and really we want to help you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Vardhan and Jordan. That's been great. Got a couple of questions. One question was, what are the most used online resources if architects are not going to the manufacturer's website? And another attendee answered the number one method specification sources for architects now seems to be Google, after using Outdoor and Word documents in their office. And that's what I have found that to be also, whatever the leading search thing is, if they're using Google or whatever, but let's say they're using Google, they're typing in a question. And many times I find that question, it does not necessarily have the name of your type of product even in it. Okay. How to control moisture, how to reduce fenestration problems, whatever it is. And then I think the key is not only, okay, that's where they go. What of that list that they're presented, what is the most attractive to them? And what they're telling me is the manufacturer's website is not number one. That they first, they don't want one manufacturer's take on something. They want maybe an influencer, independent. It could be an article in a publication that's been written by an engineer, an architect, or somebody knows what they're talking about. They kind of start there and then they go dive a little deeper. And the other one that I keep noticing is, I'm going to call it more and more, with the growth of YouTube, more and more influencers. Like there's Belinda Carr is an architect in Dallas who has a great website where she reviews materials, and she does it in a, like, you can tell it's not like I'm being paid to say nice things about this product. That you can tell she sincerely takes, compares the properties of different types of foam insulation. Yep. From her perspective, right? And at least you're like, okay, now thank you, Belinda. Now that leads me further down the path. And yes, right. I think eventually they get to the manufacturer's website, but even then it can be frustrating for them, because the more I've talked to them, it's like the manufacturers, to me, I keep thinking they should have the button that says, if an architect, go here, and they click there and it takes them to a whole nother section. It's just, this is what architects need. This is, here's early stage, here's mid stage, here's whatever, here's all the stuff that you will need, easy to find, but they have to hunt and peck, and it's stuff is hidden in all kinds of places. So I think hopefully that answered your question about, yes, I think yes, it is Google, where they're starting from. But then even if your company shows up number one on that page, paid or organically, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be their preferred place to start. I find that it's not. Vardhan, you have a comment on that?
I do, actually. So I really think, Mark, to your point earlier, I think it really makes a difference based on who the architect sees as a product expert. Like in the case of Belinda Carr, you trust her as a building scientist. And I think, it's not really just limited to influencers, though. Like some of the best reps, I think, also do a very good job, to tell the architect that, hey, we won't be the right application for
Right.
this
That's the
opportunity,
ideal. Yes.
but I'm happy to recommend others. And I think like that, the transparency there helps the architect to build trust that, all right, I can rely on this individual anytime I need to think about insulation or glazing
Yes.
or cladding and so on. I think it's super
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, we only have a couple more minutes. I have several more questions. Now, got a question here from Peter asking, does Ace Lab reach people in Canada? And I assume you reach people globally, I assume.
Yeah. So what we've done so far is all the manufacturers available in the US, in North America, we have their specs and their information already on the platform. And that really helped us to grow rapidly with architecture firms, where it's not just limited to the specs of manufacturers that pay us, or we have a partnership with. It's really all the manufacturer specs. Now, the manufacturers that pay us, they have an edge where they're able to interact with these architects directly through the platform when the architect has inbound interest, and when the architect is reaching out to discuss a project or with an inquiry on a project.
Yes. So then another, this is more of a comment, but the loss of CSI professionals is a problem. It's different world than it used to be. And in my opinion, I agree with that. In fact, and once again, this is this cost pressure to me on the architectural firm. Can I afford to have this person or have enough of them? And so now we have, in different localities and so forth, we have GCs and other people saying, well, can't I sign off on these plans? Wow, do we need an architect to do this? Right? I mean, where and that's another threat to me, to the architect, and also to me is not as smart or poses some real dangers. What are your thoughts on that, Verdun?
That is so true. I mean, so from our advisory board at Ace Lab, we have some of the top spec writers in the country. One frustration I hear all the time is that first, that industry is, a dying and aging industry, meaning the younger folks aren't as excited to go on the technical side of the practice, and everyone wants to be the design architect. I think the real challenge there is that there's a whole generation of architects who don't really have the technical expertise. And so for them, actually, with Ace Lab, something that we have under development right now is AI-based tools, which actually recommend the right product based on the application from the architect. So that is a way to short circuit intelligence, so that it's not all the pressure is not only on the few folks in a firm who actually have the expertise and the experience to do the specifications the right way every single time. But I totally agree with that. I think the gap there on a technical standpoint is huge in the industry right now.
Right. Okay. And so we just have a couple more minutes here. Any other questions anybody else has that attendees that you can ask Jordan or Verdun or myself? While we're thinking there, just one of the things I want to leave is to that you all, this is the time of year when you're doing your budgeting, and so you're sitting there, and I would just challenge you. I know if you're in the marketing position, it's hard. If the leader of sales just is the biggest fan of going to the AIA show ever, that it's hard to fight that. But, I would encourage you to take a look at, all the marketing expenditures you have in this area and look at all of them and say which ones are actually delivering and which ones are just kind of a hope and a prayer. And the ones that are actually delivering, perhaps do more with them. The ones that you don't really know, what if you take a year off and see what happens? Okay. The world is not going to end. Okay. And most companies, it isn't like every single sale is worth so much that they can afford to spend huge amounts of money for every lead. Most of them have to be more practical. And so I think taking this approach of just, oh, here's another way to get more leads, okay, which I certainly, think from what I've, learned about Ace Lab is certainly, it does that, but I think Ace Lab draws a line in the sand. It's a different approach as opposed to just yet another way. And and like, for example, saying like being more, let's say not as uh, not as excited about going out and getting as many lunches and learns as you can, but how about we worry about getting better lunch and learns, right, with the best firms that are
Right.
the ones that, and so we're going to make best use of our time and our sales reps' times, our investment in those things, and to just step back and rethink all of that. Oh, maybe we got a couple more here.
Yeah,
One
Yes,
last
sorry.
one, I think, Mark,
But-
regarding suites. Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think you should take
Okay.
that one, Barton.
All right. So I think, suites, master spec and ARCAT and so on. I think at the end of the day, these are all repositories. And I don't think being listed on a website, just like your own, guarantees any sort of interaction or success with architects. So our approach on this is slightly different. We're more focused on when an architect has a problem, how do they find you? What do they understand about you? Like, do they understand the differentiators of like how you could actually help them solve a problem on a project? And that's not so much the marketing speak that we've heard generally from architects, that when they go to manufacturer websites, it's hard for them to even to develop a good understanding of a brand or a product they don't know with a few clicks in a few minutes. And so our approach to this is, when the architect has a problem, we need to make sure that if you are the right solution, you are found, and then the architect is the one reaching out with inbound interest. And that's key to be efficient in these, the architect manufacturer relationships. Meaning, if your sales force spends all of their time, your reps and architectural support team, every hour they're spending to cold call and email the wrong architects is an hour not being spent on supporting the right architects.
Yes, exactly. And then final question I have here is, what's the best kind of content we should be putting out? Putting, I think, on our website right now for architects. And so one is, this is my opinion and my experience, and that is you need to be regularly talking to the architects themselves. Mm-hmm. What are their problems, interests, questions, challenges they're facing? What information are they looking for? And then be providing that. Okay. Yes, it's great to have case histories and success stories and test reports, but they're too often just kind of, the architect to me looks and says, oh, okay, here's another, I'm really interested in this product, I'm really interested in this company, but they just keep giving me sales stuff, right? What if they stepped back and said, a new way of, at looking at cladding specification, or, the challenges of what are the biggest problems architects have in specifying cladding, right? And so to, be, first of all, very attuned to what the architect's issues are and questions and challenges and problems, and just ask them, they'll tell you. And then develop content which, first of all, answers that question more than it sells your product. And too often we still have too many companies I just can't help myself. Here's yet another reason to buy my cladding, right? And so I think that's the best way. Vardhan, what do you think?
I agree with that. I think, for architects, we all know that they are, at the end of the day, not the buyer. They can play a huge role as the influencer. They'd be the best champion you can have with the other stakeholders on the project, but they're not the buyer. So for the architect, you need to display to them, how will you help them solve a problem on a project? I think, like I've heard this from VPs of sales and marketing a lot, is that we have information on our website about how the company was founded and how it was these two people in, like a village 100 years ago. At the end of the day, like I'm sure the architect would appreciate that information if they have the time or the bandwidth. But most of the time, architects need answers. Especially with the younger generation of architects, the attention spans are decreasing rapidly, and like now, they're that of a goldfish. And so I feel like it's really important to make sure that the most important information is right there for the architect to absorb as soon as they come on your website, which is,
Yes.
like all the stuff that Mark mentioned.
Good. Okay. Hey, well, we've gone a little over, and hopefully we've answered everybody's questions. I will be sending a copy of this recording out to everyone so that you can share it with other team members within your organization in case you're kind of going, I see the light, but they don't, or whatever, however you want to put it. But I really appreciate the great attendance we had today and great feedback. So everybody have a great day, and thanks again, Vardhan and Jordan.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Take care. Bye now.
Have a great week, everyone. Thanks.
Yes, bye.